Hi there, this is Aaron. Today is Tuesday the 16th of August and today is all about how to grow big onions.
Excuse me mate, can I have my onion back?
Oh yeah, this is Peter's. We're really lucky today because Pete's come up to say hello, and as you've seen, he's grown better onions than I have. I would show you my onions, but they're absolutely nothing compared to them. So as I said on the last video, we're going to have a real onion grower with us today. So welcome to Pete.
Hi guys.
Right, mate, onions. You've seen the onions that I've grown and they are nothing remotely close to those. So even though the onions I've grown this year are the best I've ever grown. Now, how did you get that?
Honest answer?
He's bought it at Sainsbury's.
No.
Yeah.
Watching lots of YouTube videos. A bit of a plagiarist when it comes to growing onions. I tend to copy one person you'll know in particular, Dan from Allotment Diary, because you want to know how to do something, learn from the best. But it all starts with, which you've got the same seed. You've got to have good seed, and this is Medwyns of Anglesey. Hoping that he's still going to have some this year because of what happened with all the seeds getting damaged by the hailstorm. It's going to be a bit of a mad dash for it, but these are the best ones I've ever grown as well, and it seems to be a pretty good year for onions and alliums as well. These were started on the 27th of November last year. I started them a month earlier because last year our show date was different, and they were not quite this big, although one freak one was bigger. I didn't have time to dry them out, and you need at least 4 weeks. So 27th of November under lights.
So that's a good 2 months before I started mine.
The traditional day is Boxing Day,
Yeah.
which is what I did last year. I think the day after Boxing Day, but I didn't have as good germination. I don't know whether it was because of the bit of the Christmas cheer going round. So. But yeah, they went under lights, and they don't really need a lot of looking after. The potting on and the mixing up of the compost is the big thing.
What did you start the seeds off in?
It's plain old Levington's F2 plus S in a big tray all together,
Yeah.
and then pricked them out when they got the second leaf or first true leaf on them, and then put them into individual square cells, and then they went up to 3-inch, 4-inch, 5-inch pots. I use the square pots because I've got a square growing room, and that means I don't waste any room.
That's a really good tip.
Unfortunately, underneath my airing cupboard where I have the lights, I can only get the lights about 3.5, 4 feet off the ground before we start getting into towels and sheets and stuff, which I'm not allowed to move elsewhere. So they got a bit scorched on the top. That's obviously from drying out, but
I was given a tip that if you snip the tops off where they're going to get scorched, that actually the onion will be perfectly fine with that, and it's still getting the width, and it'll put more on the side as well, so it'll send up more flutes. I didn't do that this year, but that's a tip that I've been given by somebody who does grow under lights and says it's a common problem. I mean, my light box is about that tall, so with the lights it's down to about there, so the onions can quite soon get up to a level where they can be scorched, but that's good. Now I planted my onions in coir, and there are some people that say that coir is a really good idea, which is why I went with it, but then you've got to feed it. So whereas you had the Levingtons that already had the food inside, I had to give mine a week. It was seaweed, so a quite dilute seaweed feed, and they did well in that, and as I say, they're the best onions that I've had, but by the looks of things those extra 2 months are really important.
The second potting on, they got dipped again, as Dan does, in liquid seaweed. So when they went from 3-inch to 5-inch pots, they got dipped and soaked in that, and then they didn't have any more feed until they went out. and the weather was so late breaking this year.
Yeah.
When you're growing onions like this, you can't put them outside, you can't risk it. So I built the box in the back garden, which the wife absolutely hates because it makes the garden look ugly, but it worked. I think the combination of that, then being kind of indoors and starting 2 months earlier, is where I've got now. And the ones at home have got a fan on them for 12 hours a day, and they're drying out nicely. But the only feed they had during the season after they went out was every 10 to 14 days they had 10 mil of Mick Pulteney's fish poo, which he gave me at the Edible Garden show, and a little bit of that liquid seaweed as well.
When did you plant them out?
I need to check back, but I think it was very end of April. It might have even been the first week in May. I think it was very, very late, and it was certainly after we had one frost at -1 the day after I planted them out. But it's amazing to look back, and that's why I like doing the video on YouTube, is you can see, you go back and look, whereas it was tiny. They come obviously from a seed, so, and you don't really see that because these are in my back garden, so I see them every day, or talk to them every day, as the wife says. But yeah, I'm really chuffed with them. These are the ones I left in to try and see if I could get a set for Malvern, but as you can see, they've gone now. They stopped growing a couple of days ago. I've got 2 that are still shooting. I'm just going to leave them in and see if I can beat the heavy one from last year, which was 6.2 pounds, I think, with all
well
the foliage.
done.
I haven't weighed these ones yet. I just pulled them up last night to bring over and show Aaron and have a bit of fun with them.
Because through the season we've been having a chat. I was later starting, and quite clearly that makes a difference. Now the other thing is that I didn't have anywhere to transplant them to once they were inside the grow tent, so mine had to go straight from the grow tent to being hardened off to going straight in the ground. So mine went in the ground an awful lot earlier. Mine went in the ground in March, and it looks like having that intermediate environment, because didn't you put yours in a greenhouse at one point?
Only to harden them off.
Yeah.
I've got them once they're underneath the lights in the hall, in the cupboard, in the old airing cupboard, and they stay in there. If it's a nice day, I'll take them out if it's the weekend. But my hardening off consists of a day, because I'm at work all week. I leave too early, and to get what was at one point 80 onions, or 40 once I've net them down, out, 5 big trays of onions that you can't just. It's not an easy job to get them out and waking all the house up before I go to work. It's just not practical. So they go out on a Saturday, and I think I planted them out on the Sunday. So they get 24 hours of
to harden off. Wow.
But they went in the cloche type thing.
Yes.
And for the first few days, because I knew it was going to be a bit chilly, I had one of the 100-hour candles in there, just taking the edge off the frost.
That's right.
And it seemed to do right. But
because next year I'm going to have this greenhouse built. I've been saying I'm going to build this greenhouse for about a year now, and I've still not got around to it because there's just so much that needs to be done on this plot. I've been showing Pete around. He's seen sort of how little we've actually got done so far this year.
It's better than mine this year. Too much concentrating on these, I think.
But I think that's the point, that if you can get them in early in seed, under lights, but once they've grown out of lights, to get them to get them under glass, and either with lights, or once it moves past February when you've got more light in the day, that's what they really benefit from. And the other thing that you did that I completely didn't do is that mine was still in coir. They were still in the coir block because I had nowhere to pot them on to.
Yeah, I saw yours when I came round last, and they were a little bit root bound, weren't they?
Oh, that they weren't a little bit root bound. They were a lot root bound. They'd started to dig.
Well, that's one thing I've been told. They definitely don't like being root bound. I've had none. Last year I had one go to seed, completely random. Was
Wow.
treated the same as all the others, and I didn't think that was supposed to happen with the first year onion. But funnily enough, it happened with my ventos that I did this year for the smaller class. I harvested all bar about 4 that weren't the right size, dressed them up and put them out to dry, and then the very next day when I came out, one of the 3 I'd left had a scape that had come up, hit the top of the netting, and was pointing back down.
Wow.
It had grown 4 foot overnight and wasn't there the day before.
That's really unusual, because they say that onions form a bulb in the first year and a scape in the second year.
Yeah.
So that one thought it was 2 years old, a year early.
Strange. And I've got 2 of the same seeds from these that I kept in the 3-inch pots, that just to try and force them to seed this year, and they haven't gone to seed. They're tiny, they're still tennis ball size, leaves are dying off, but they're not trying to survive. I've stopped giving them water now, they're starting to dry out. I'm hoping one of them will shoot a flower spike out, but because I did try and save some seed last year, but I only had one onion, and apparently that's no good because you need the cross-pollination from plants to make the seeds better. And plus that one rotted off anyway. So, but a couple of these I'm going to put down to seed and see if I can get some for next year.
Now, the other thing, because everyone has their own little cocktail, and one of the cocktail ingredients that is really popular at the moment, which I think we both used, is mycorrhizal fungi.
Yeah.
What do you think of it?
I haven't seen on any of mine when I dug them up. Admittedly, I cut most of the roots off, but I haven't seen any hyphae roots on any of my stuff that I used Mycorrhizal on. But I haven't been buying the better grade of stuff. I've just been buying the stuff from the shop, and Kevin from the Giant Veg place, he said it tends to scorch the roots rather than help them. It's quite coarse. So I might try different stuff next year, but the only other thing I've tried different, because I did use Mycorrhizal last year, is these have had charge on the second potting on. I put charge, calcified seaweed into the mix with the Levingtons, and then obviously a bit more soily stuff.
Well, we both used calcified seaweed because Pete was very kind and gave me some of the calcified seaweed. I didn't use charge, and for those that don't know, charge is ground up beetle muck. And I mean, that. If you've got a job making charge, there's got to be better ways to earn a living. So one would hope that it produces a better result. What do you think?
Well, they say where there's muck, there's brass. So the proof will be in the showing. But they're certainly better than last year. But it's a combination of that extra month. I think it's a good year for onions this year. And the charge, I don't know. I'd have to try next year and do a Terry King style experiment if I have the patience for it, Terry. It's only my 3rd year growing onions, and when you do something like that, you tend to concentrate and you get a little bit blinkered. So I haven't had as much produce out the back garden this year, but that's all right. I get first prize, I'll be happy.
How can you not get first prize with that cannonball? I mean, that is absolutely brilliant.
Well, I'm hoping, because I was thinking about going to Malvern, I started looking at the website the other day, and you can scroll back through the years and pick the categories and see who won. And I think it was last year or the year before, the guy who came 3rd place for his set of 6 or 9 onions was a Mr. D. Greasy from Banbury. And I think he was the guy that I first saw his big onions about 3 years ago, and it must have been the same set he took to Malvern. So if he turns up, you never know. But I don't know.
Well done with these, mate. Really well done.
Thank you.
Amazing job. And please do, for people that, I mean, us mere mortals, I mean, I know that Dan and Mark, they really do know what they're doing, but for us mere mortals, please do follow Pete's channel, because you can learn an awful lot about how to grow big onions there. You said that the ground on your plot, because, I mean, we're in the height of summer now and it's really baked, that you've got the clay cracking.
Very clay, yeah. Put 2 ton of horse muck on it last year. Pretty convinced I've imported a load of weeds with that, so I'll make sure I get it from a different source next year. But yeah, it's very clay. I haven't been watering as much as I should, but in areas where I haven't got any crops, I've got inch wide crevices appearing. Looks like a miniature Grand Canyon. So I'm toying with the idea of membraning the whole thing and going for raised beds, which I've got in the back garden, because I can access the timber through work, because obviously I work in construction, so getting older scaffold boards and things like that is quite easy. But then I've been down to Aaron's and we've been having a look at his back to Eden method, and then that's one that's definitely worth thinking about. Yeah,
because my soil, I mean, if you look at an area where we haven't put the wood chips down, the ground is baked solid, you can't easily get a fork into it. Whereas if you pull back the wood chips, the ground underneath is moist and it's really loose, as we've seen. Now, I'm convinced that that is what's given me the best results for this year. In terms of an actual growing medium, I mean, it's gorgeous and it keeps the weeds down.
And it's only an inch down, literally an inch of wood chips, and you're down to wet soil like it just rained last night. So very pliable. So I'm thinking I'll maybe do half and half, give it a go, see what happens.
I haven't shown this for a little while, but this is the Trombicino that comes from Roland Taylor, which I've grown outdoors, and if I show you, zoom in a bit, you can see the size of it. So Pete's of course didn't make it through.
No, I didn't plan on it being this big, which is a bit silly really, having been told how big they get from Roland. I let mine trail along the floor and they all sort of rotted off on the end, and no, I wasn't prepared enough.
So there you go, and you can see we've got quite a few on here now.
Loads of them. I counted 7, I think.
So thank you very much to Roland. And also thanks an awful lot to Pete, mate. Thank you very much for coming on down. It's been absolute pleasure having you here and showing you around, and also to see what a real onion grower can do.
I'm just a plagiarist. He keeps bigging me up. It's only my 3rd year, but I'll take it. I'll take it. Cheers, mate.
Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on The Allotment. Goodbye.